Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all enjoying this lovely fall morning that we're having. My name is Dan, and I am pleased to be joining Peter and Michael on the chancel this morning. Along with the other members of the Social Justice Ministry, we are happy to be shepherding you through this special service this morning. September's theme is faith. We think one of the most important things about faith is putting it into action. And so we'll be talking, reflecting, and singing about how to show up for justice today. We have our lovely banner to set home the point. We welcome you to this sanctuary and worship service, as well as those of you joining us online. We hope that in this congregation and sacred space, wherever it may be, you will be strengthened by spiritual encouragement and find comfort from those who join you in worship. As we enter worship, please take a moment to verify that your cell phones are muted if you are here in the sanctuary. To everyone familiar and everyone new to this congregation, you are welcomed with love. If you are in person, you're invited to stop by the welcome table in the vestibule if you would like to learn more about this congregation and Unitarian Universalism. If you are joining us online, please visit the newcomer page on our website, uucwnc.org, to get acquainted with us. At this time, we invite any visitors or folks who have been away from us a while to introduce or reintroduce yourselves if you would feel comfortable doing so. And if you're online, you can drop a line in the chat box. So I'll start with this side, if there's anybody new that would like to introduce themselves or reintroduce themselves. All right. In the middle, anyone new? Okay. And on this side, yes?
Hi, Beverly.
Hi, Beverly. Nice to have you. Thank you for sharing worship with us this morning. And please join us afterwards in Dobkin Hall, which is located in the back of the building. Now we have a few announcements to go through, most of which you'll find in your order of service this morning. There's a calendar in there, as well as one posted on your way to Dobkin Hall of events coming up. And if you're joining us online, a link for the order of service is available on the homepage for the website. But I want to highlight a couple of areas this morning. First, and extremely important, as I switch from social justice to search committee, today is the last day to fill out the congregational survey if you have not done so. We are at 99 surveys. We really want to push that over 100. So we really want you, if you have not done so, go fill out the survey today. You have until midnight. We know that all of you have opinions. I'm not sure if it counts if just the wife laughs. This is your chance to share them with us, so don't miss out. If you have questions about the survey, Elizabeth is going to be at the table in the vestibule after the service answering those questions. Also, there are a couple more times for you to be heard by the search committee in our focus groups. Today, after church, we're having a focus groups for anyone who identifies as part of the LGBT plus community. There's another one on Thursday this week at 6 o'clock on Zoom, especially for those who attend Zoom regularly. And then next Sunday, October 1st, we'll have an open one after the service that anybody feels like they haven't been heard yet can come to and make yourself heard. And we will go through the focus groups. We'll have a couple available, so if a lot of you show up, we'll be prepared for that. Switching back to my social justice hat, we also want to bring your attention to the upcoming pilgrimage, which is what we will be hosting here the weekend of November 10th through 12th, as the city and area also has events commemorating the 1898 Wilmington coup and massacre, and so that makes this the 125th anniversary. We'll be having a movie night on Friday the 10th and a special service and shared meal on Sunday the 12th, as well as helping our guests participate in various activities throughout the weekend. So we're inviting youths from all over the state The social justice person for the state has already sent out an email blast. We're getting emails about people wanting to come and take part of events that we're putting on as well as the city. So we're going to be looking for some volunteers to make good hosts and give rides, just be stewards of our city and of the guests that we have coming. We'll have a table set up in Dobkin Hall after the service for you to sign up and see the different ways that you can get involved. All right. And now let us take a moment to settle ourselves, to open our hearts and minds to worship. We will bring to us this morning at the sounding of the chimes, let our spirits enter into a different space, a space of worship, of life, of that which we hold sacred. May we take this time to grow our souls.
This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, singing with love and the will to trust. Leave the rest behind and turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, a song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
Good morning. Please join me in the unit, wait, do they join me or do I just say it? Okay, thank you. A little rusty. Please join me in the unison chalice lighting while Emma Wheat Rivers lights the chalice. If ever there was a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice.
Our first hymn is in your order of service. There's an insert for a song called Turning of the World. My hope is that by the fourth verse, you'll be able to sing along. But enjoy the song and join in when you can. Let us sing this song for the turning of the world, that we may turn as one. With every voice, every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our turning. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along. With every voice, every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our turning. Let us sing this song for the healing of the world, that we may heal as one. With every voice, every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our healing. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along. With every voice, every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our turning. Let us sing this song for the dreaming of the world, that we may dream as one. With every voice, every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our dreaming. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along. With every voice, every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our dreaming. Let us sing this song for the loving of the world, that we may love as one. With every voice, every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our loving. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along. With every voice, every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our loving, and our lives will feel the echo of our dreaming, and our lives will feel the echo of our healing, and our lives will feel the echo of our turning.
Good morning. I think many of you might have already heard this story, but I bet it's a favorite, and it just means you can help me say it. This one is called Click Clack Moo, Cows That Type. Farmer Brown has a problem. His cows like to type. All day long he hears click clack, moo, click clack, moo, clickety clack, moo. At first, he couldn't believe his ears. Cows that type? Impossible. Click clack moo, click clack moo, clickety clack moo. So he walked to the barn to check it out, and then he couldn't believe his eyes. There was a note nailed to the barn door. Dear Farmer Brown, the barn is very cold at night. We'd like some electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows. It was bad enough the cows had found the old typewriter in the barn. Now they wanted electric blankets. No way, said Farmer Brown. No electric blankets. So the cows went on strike. They left a note on the barn door. It said, "We're closed. No milk today." No milk today. In the background, he heard cows busy at work. Click, clack, moo, click, clack, moo, clickety, clack, moo. The next day, he got another note. "Dear Farmer Brown, the hens are cold too. They'd like electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows." The cows were growing impatient with the farmer. They left a new note on the barn door. "No eggs," cried Farmer Brown in the background. He heard them. Click, clack, moo, click, clack, moo, clickety, clack, moo. Cows that type, hens on strike. Who ever heard of such a thing? How can I run a farm with no milk and no eggs? Farmer Brown was furious. He got out his own typewriter. "Dear cows and hens, there will be no electric blankets. You are cows and hens. I demand milk and eggs. Sincerely, Farmer Brown." Now, Duck was a neutral party, so he brought the ultimatum to the cows. The cows held an emergency meeting. All the animals gathered around the barn to snoop, but none of them could understand moo. All night long, Farmer Brown waited for an answer. Duck knocked on the door early the next morning. He handed Farmer Brown a note. "Dear Farmer Brown, we will exchange our typewriter for electric blankets. Leave them outside the barn, and we will send Duck over with the typewriter. Sincerely, the cows." Well, Farmer Brown decided this was a pretty good deal. He left the blankets next to the barn door, and he waited for Duck to come with the typewriter. The next morning, he got a note. "Dear Farmer Brown, the pond is quite boring. We would like a diving board. Sincerely, the ducks." Click, clack, quack. Click, clack, quack. Click, clack, whack.
So our reading this morning is To Be a Unitarian Universalist by Erica Hewitt. And I invite you to see how these words resonate with you as I read these words. To be a Unitarian Universalist means we'll never be done with the work. The work of telling the truth about oppression, the work of resisting any laws, policies, or practices that deny anyone their humanity, the work of stubbornly seeking out the spark of the divine in each other, no matter what, the work of creating heaven on earth. To be a Unitarian Universalist also means we're not alone in the work. We are not alone because of our promises to love one another. We are not alone because we are companions on the journey. We grow ourselves into allies, helping one another get free, because none of us is truly free until we are all free.
There are days we wish would never end because they are so wonderful. And there are days that cannot end too soon because they are so hard. Sorrow is the mortar between our happiness. We take this time to recognize those good days and the hard ones. You are now invited to come to the front and light a candle or place a shell or river stone in our fountain. If you are online, please feel free to enter your personal joys and concerns in the chat box. And as our friends come forward, let us sing our compassion to them with hymn 123, Spirit of Life.
And now let's join in a moment of prayer, meditation, or sacred headspace as we join with our fellow congregants, family, and friends in celebrating their joys and comforting their concerns. Let us also settle into a new season. With the passing of the equinox and the darkness lasting longer than the light, may we find comfort in each other through shared sorrows and joyful celebrations. As the night grows long, let us join together and be each other's light in this congregation, in your neighborhoods, in your families, and in your world. So growing up, one set of my grandparents lived in rural South Georgia. And I mean like a mile from Florida, dirt roads, nothing but farms and swamps, South Georgia. I would spend about 6 weeks every summer there. My grandfather ran a large farm, and they had lived on the property since my mom was young. They didn't own it, but they ran it. The house that was there was magnificent, but it wasn't anything fancy. It was an old Civil War wagon stop. It had 6 rooms that were all the exact same size. The ceilings had been lowered several times, but they were still 12 feet high. There was a 10-acre pond with a dock and an in-ground swimming pool that was fed by an underground spring, so it was always cold, which was great because an old Civil War house can't handle wiring for an air conditioning. I have a lot of great memories there. I learned how to drive and how to swim. I learned how to farm and play pool. I learned how to make my grandmother's famous crunch cake and blueberry tarts. I learned how to fish and what alligator tastes like. I learned how to cut patterns for clothes and how to sew. And I learned how to be racist. Now, I'm sure I was learning it from plenty of other places too, but this is where it stands out the most to me. I think it was more an inherited viewpoint and way of thinking passed down for generations than it was an intentional dehumanization. But woeful ignorance does not dismiss responsibility. When segregation in school happened, their answer was to send white kids to private school and leave the public schools underfunded, undereducated, under-maintained, over-policed, over-punished, and with a whitewashed curriculum. Meanwhile, on the farm, when they talked about black people, not that they called them that, it was definitely as a second-class citizen, a less than in intelligence, work ethic, and worth. So I, in my impressionable youth, like so many in their youth do, soaked it all up. When they told me black people were more prominent in sports, it was because they had been bred to be stronger as slaves, and that had passed on to current day. When they told me Bubba, who worked as a part-time laborer on the farm, survived in large part from the food he got from the farm and my grandmother's garden, and lived in a house that had a dirt floor, wasn't intelligent because he was black, I believed it and didn't consider it was the lack of learning and access he had to knowledge growing up. At some point in my early teens, I started to go beyond blind acceptance of things told to me by those I trusted, and I started to learn how to think critically. Maybe it was seeing Bill Cosby and Felicia Rashad as a doctor and lawyer every week. Maybe it was finding out my cousins celebrated Robert E. Lee Day instead of MLK Day at school. And perhaps it was respect for Colin Powell, or maybe I just started learning more about history. Probably a little bit about everything. But I was starting to question, starting to challenge. At first, I was most comfortable challenging or questioning my friends when they said something. Then my parents, then strangers, and finally my extended family. I'm not really sure why, but my extended family members are still the hardest people for me to challenge. Maybe because I don't see them often, but these were my first steps, my first times showing up for justice. I didn't have the words then, but I was trying to stop generations of bigotry based on false knowledge, lies, and white power systems. So I am a racist. I am an anti-racist. As Ibram Kendi notes, we can be racist in one moment and anti-racist in the next. It's an interesting duality that exists within me. I have to constantly and consistently track my thoughts when I meet someone new or hear something on the news about people who are different than I am. No matter how much work I do, there is still more I must do. I am the product of growing up in a white, male, straight, cisgendered, privileged world. The first and perhaps hardest step was recognizing that. Everyone else has obstacles that I do not. Then I had to learn, and there is so much to learn. It's amazing how recently a lot of these changes have happened. It's not generations removed. When I was in school, LGBTQ+ wasn't something I was really aware of, nor was it much of a topic in my life. I do remember hearing the AIDS being a big story, and almost all of it was painted in a negative light towards gay men, until Magic Johnson got it, and then those stories began to diminish. And I remember the big stories of Ellen coming out on her show and in real life, and that was the first time that I had heard of an organization boycotting something or someone based on their belief system of dehumanizing or vilifying an entire section of the population. But these felt far less personal to me, and I didn't know any non-cis people, or so I thought. For women, they couldn't get a bank account or credit card without a man's permission into the 70s. A single mom could be denied a place to live into the late 80s. Women are still discriminated against in pay and promotions, and now their reproductive rights have been taken away. Businesses are still allowed to deny service to someone because they are gay. The LGBTQ+ community is being persecuted, and new laws are being made in some states to essentially make their existence illegal. Black people are arrested, killed, and sentenced by the justice system more frequently and harshly. Racism is a discrimination by an individual, group, or institution against a person or people based on their membership of a particular race or ethnic group considered to be a minority. Anti-racism is not just the absence of these. It's not just the absence of discrimination against that group. It is the actions of opposing that prejudice and working to change. So now I stand before you as someone who has marched for race, gender, and identity equality and equity. Someone who writes lawmakers. Someone who speaks out. But I have plenty more to do, plenty more to learn. The atrocities committed in this country in the name of white male power are countless, but we must continue to show up for justice. In my opinion, this congregation has shown great fortitude in showing up for justice. Approximately 1/3 of us showed up to rallies this summer concerning being the banned book stamped. But we have to continue this work. We cannot let the whitewashing of history continue. We cannot let the marginalized stay in the margins and be erased. They must join us on the page, be represented equitably and accurately in the history books, have equal rights and equitable opportunities. We must keep doing the work. We must show up for justice.
Thank you, Dan, for that really thoughtful homily. Good morning. I'm Michael Sheridan, and I'd like to start by asking you to remember a number. That number is 5,000. So if you could just make a little mental note, remember 5,000. So the eighth principle charges us with, quote, accountably dismantling racism and other oppressions, end quote. Not a small task. In fact, it's huge and can be overwhelming. So overwhelming that it's tempting to turn away from what is happening right now in our state, in our country, and in our world. And that can be relatively easy to do, depending on how many privileged identities we have. Take me, for instance. I've had to deal with sexism and patriarchy throughout my life because of my gender, and I'm increasingly confronted with ageism because of my age. But based on my other identities, my race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, citizenship, disability status, and socioeconomic status, I'm pretty well protected in this culture of ours. Even being a UU in a Christian-dominant society is pretty safe. I don't have to deal with anti-Semitism or Islamophobia. No one is going after Unitarians, at least not yet. So, why get engaged in the messy, difficult struggle to help bend that moral arc of the universe toward justice when I'm not often directly impacted by injustice? It's a lot of effort, after all, often without a whole lot of immediate rewards. As they say, justice work is a marathon, not a sprint. So why show up for justice, the theme of our service today? Well, participating in this service has given me the opportunity to really reflect on this, and I've identified two primary reasons for me. The first is about values. As a UU and a human being, I want to be part of the justice that, as Reverend Dr. King stated, provides, quote, a power correcting everything which stands against love. Let me say that again. Justice provides a power correcting everything which stands against love. You see, I believe that there are really only two core human emotions, love and its opposite, which we often think of as hate. But the opposite of love is not hate, it's fear. These two, love and fear, are the foundations for all other human emotions. Love gives birth to emotions such as kindness, compassion, empathy, humility, patience, generosity. Fear, on the other hand, brings forth hate, greed, arrogance, apathy, resentment, false pride. So in making decisions, I try to ask myself, am I coming from a place of love or fear? Do I do this perfectly? Not by a long shot. By the way, the words perfect and human should never be used in the same sentence. But sitting with this question, where am I coming from, love or fear, helps me to more often engage in actions that align with my values including my UU values. The second reason I show up for justice are the people who have graced my life. Many I met as part of my career as a social worker, like the group of 10 inner city youth who spent a summer with me clearing out a stream in a lovely green space that they did not have in their neighborhoods. The group of 17 men I spent 5 years with who were sentenced to maximum security prison for a variety of crimes, but the underlying reason that they were there was the deeply rooted racism and poverty that often destroyed their neighborhoods, their families, and their sense of self. The graduate student who let me know at the end of the semester that she had been living in her car with her newborn infant, but still managed to make it to class every week. The group of 8 women I facilitated who were healing one another from sexual assault and from the stigma of that assault. My university colleague who used a wheelchair and opened my eyes to just how inaccessible our campus and our city was. The 100 social work students I was honored to teach in the Philippines who grew up in a war zone and committed their lives to working for peace in Mindanao. And the many asylum seekers who shared their horrific experiences with torture in my international social development class each year. And closer to home, my 4 biracial grandchildren, all young adults now. Every time I hear of another Black man being killed by the police, I think of Daniel and Michael. And as I watch with great concern the increasing attacks on the LGBTQ+ community, I think of Christian and her lovely wife, Lauren, and Remy, who is in the midst of his own gender-affirming journey right now. I want for them and everyone to be able to live in a world we all dream about, a world where there is no discrimination, no injustice, where everyone gets what they need to thrive and to contribute and to belong, where every child, every person is valued for all of who they are, where everyone has a place at the welcome table where their voice will be heard, where diversity is not merely tolerated or accepted, it's celebrated, and where everyone protects and nurtures this green jewel of a planet we call home. So back to that number, 5,000. How many people remembered it? Do you remember it? Great. Well, 5,000 plus is the number of UUs in North Carolina. If all of us just picked one thing we would do, one way we would consistently show up for justice, maybe that dream of mine, that dream I think we all share, maybe it would have a chance. All I know is I will keep dreaming and learning and showing up. Will you join me? Will you join us? Will you be part of the 5,000 UUs showing up for justice in North Carolina? May it be so.
This time I'll invite you to stand for our next hymn called "The Tide is Rising." This time you get only 3 verses to learn to sing along. You did a fabulous job last time. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are bound to be. This is where we are called to be. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be.
So today's Share the Plate recipient is UU Justice NC, an organization that has been instrumental in providing support and guidance for the work being done by our own congregation's social justice ministry. Reverend Lisa Garcia Sampson, a familiar name to many of us, leads UU Justice NC, there she is, and facilitates collaborations among over 24 congregations across North Carolina. Just a few of the many events where we've joined forces in the past year include the midterm UU The Vote postcard campaign, the reproductive justice phone blitz to legislatures, another phone blitz asking for release of Leandro funds for public education, and this summer's Let Freedom Read rally at the New Hanover County Board of Education. UU Justice NC also helped us plan the 1898 pilgrimage we held last year and is our partner again this year. They've also provided 8th Principle leadership workshops, and most recently, they obtained funding for a transgender inclusion congregations course, which will be an important resource for us in our LGBTQ+ focus this year. So please, please generously support UU Justice NC in their invaluable work to support us and UUs across the state. If you are contributing by check, please put STP in the memo field. You can also text your donation to 813-513-0597. Would the ushers please come forward now to take the collection? So Dan and Peter and I want to thank everyone who made this service possible this morning, and I just want to thank both of them for working with me on this. It was just a delight being the threesome. Thank you. So I want to thank Jeanette and Tweak as our greeters this morning, Cammie and Gail at the welcome table, Peter and Preston for providing the music, Catherine and Emma for our chalice lighting, Leslie for reading our story, and also Amelia, Jasmine, and Ruth Chambers for our e-service this morning, Scott and Beth for serving as our ushers, Pat for being our room verger, and Jimmy and Elizabeth for being our Zoom vergers and media wizards, and Joan and Dennis McCauley who are providing hospitality for us after service. Thank you to everyone. So can we give them all a big clap? So now for our closing words. Peter?
Reverend Theodore Parker was ordained as a Unitarian minister in 1837. In his 1853 sermon of Justice and the Conscience, he wrote, quote, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one, but from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice." Willie Williams Jr. is an artist in Birmingham, Alabama. He envisions the arc of justice like this. Lately, the arc feels more like this to me. But I'm not discouraged. I am called to follow the path of those who blazed the trail before me. And I feel honored each week to show up for justice with Reverend Lisa Garcia Sampson during the online Friday Action Hour with UUs and other activists from across North Carolina. We learn about different social justice issues impacting our state, and then we write emails and make phone calls to our representatives, all from the comfort of our homes or barns. This joyful, and I dare say spiritual activity flies in the face of my usual warning about the work of social justice. But as you'll see on the handout we placed at your seats today, when you're ready, there are more challenging ways of getting involved. In 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King paraphrased Reverend Theodore Parker when he wrote, quote, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." To be clear, justice is not guaranteed. It is only through our actions that justice will be achieved. So join us so that our children and grandchildren will follow the path we blaze. May it be so. So please join us now as we extinguish the chalice with the words from the order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now let's stand and link hands in love while we end our service with shalom.